My father was a minister in Kalamazoo at Bethany Reformed Church. He had an emergency appendectomy, and that was before early ambulation, before they talked really about walking immediately after surgery. So he died 10 days after surgery. He was 30 years old. So my mother had to move out of the parsonage, of course, and she moved to my grandma's house in Overijssel, where she was a woman graduate of Hope College in 1919, which was very unusual. But my grandfather believed in education, and so she had a teaching degree. And so moving to Overijssel, she had to support herself and my grandma and two of her sisters who were not married. They were old maids. And so she had 1 year, she earned $450 for the entire year. 5 of us lived on it, which took medicines and food and clothing, all the expenses of heating the house and everything. And of course, everything was cheaper at that time. You could buy Hamburg for 3 pounds for a quarter. And so that was cheap. But then if you figure $450 for the whole year, that was very not much money.
Yeah.
Well, I went to a country school in Overijssel, Sandy View. If you could read the primer and spell all the words in the book, you could start first grade. Well, my mother being a teacher, she had books at home, and I started to read the book and read all the books and spelled all the words. So I started first grade at age 4.
Wow.
And then went on through school. And then we had to take country exams at that time. Allegan County had 7th grade exams and 8th grade exams. If you didn't pass those, you couldn't go on. So I took a 7th grade exam, passed it, aced it, and she said, for fun, why don't you just take the 8th grade one too, just for fun. So I aced that one. So she said, well, you're done with school. You don't have to come back next year. I went home and I said to my mother, I'm done with school. I don't have to come back again. She said, what do you mean? I was 12 years old. She said, well, I guess you better go to high school. And at that time, almost nobody went to high school because I'm 90 years old. And most of the kids, they'd get through the 8th grade and then they'd stay on the farm. Well, my mother, being educated, also wanted me to go on to school. So how to get there? No buses, no nothing. I had to go to Holland to high school, which was like 9 miles. What do you do? Well, there was a young man from Hamilton, Francis Falkert, who was going to Hope College at that time. He picked me up and took me to high school, and I went that way. So here I was, 12 years old, a freshman at Holland High School. So then I graduated when I was 16, and then I really wanted to go to Hope College because my parents had both graduated from Hope College. Well, they gave 3 scholarships. One was, we had to sight read a piece of music. Well, I sight read pretty good, but I made a couple mistakes because it was new. I'd never seen it before. And walking out, the other girl who tried out said, it was easy. She said, I had it for a recital last week, so I knew it by heart. So of course she got the scholarship. Then they gave a scholarship for if you were a salutatorian or a valedictorian. Well, we had co-valedictorians, so I was not named the salutatorian, even though I was next. I didn't have the name salutatorian. So they said, you don't qualify. And so the third one, and this is the heartbreaker for me, if you were the daughter of a minister or missionary, you could have a scholarship. And I said, well, my father was an ordained minister. Well, what was his name? Reverend Frank D. Roos. Oh, well, where's his church? I said, well, he died just before I was born. My mother was 8 months pregnant with me, so I never knew him. Oh, they said, if he's dead, you don't qualify. And that to me was an absolute insult. But bless his heart, J.J. Remersma was a principal of Holland High School. And unbeknownst to me, he applied for a scholarship for me to Western Michigan University. In the summer, I got this little paper and said I had tuition paid and fees. No, I had to pay my fees. The fees were $9 a year, but my tuition was paid for Western. So here I was on campus, 16 years old, a naive little Overijssel girl, scared to death. No phone, no car, no nothing. I worked for my room and board, and I worked in the library. Well, by working in the library, I could put a reserve on the textbook. So during classes, I'd take notes like mad, all the time. And then the night before the exam, I'd put a reserve on the textbook in the library so I could use it and use my notes, and I aced them. And so I bought almost no books all the way through college. And so I really got through college on a song, just really by working for my room and board and working in the library. And it was good. And I graduated magna cum laude, so it was okay. And what did we do to play? We skated. We had one sidewalk on one side of the road, and we'd skate. We'd go sledding down the hill by the cemetery. And at school, if you could get down the hill at school and get as far as Holtzman's Creek, then you really had it made. And we'd also go hunting for wildflowers in the woods back of the school in the spring and pick flowers that we never should have picked but didn't know. Kids would play tricks on the teachers. I remember they'd get a dead snake and put it in her desk and then close it up. Or on the piano, they'd close up, or they'd play it over the keys and then close up the piano. And so we had chickens, we had a big garden, and my grandfather had planted almost a small orchard. We had 4 varieties of apples. We had peaches, plums, 3 varieties of grapes. We had green grapes, red grapes, and tiny red grapes. And we had raspberries, we had strawberries. And of course the usual garden foods of potatoes, and we worked hard. It was hard work, but we never would buy food anywhere. Never went to a restaurant. We didn't have electricity, we had no phone, no car, no bathroom. It was pretty much, I don't know, just living.
If you didn't grow it, you didn't have it then.
Right. And we had chickens, and then once in a while we'd get a quarter of a cow, and then that meat would be canned. And I don't remember how much it cost, not that much. I was going to say 9 cents a pound, but that maybe is way off. I don't know. I don't really remember. And then once in a while a half of a pig. And my uncle was a vet, and he lived in Detroit, but he'd come here every once in a while. And then he'd work at some of the slaughterhouses around. And if he was lucky, he'd get a heart, liver, and tongue of a pig. And oh, that tongue was just delicious. I mean, you can't imagine eating a tongue, but it was so good. And that was such a treat for us. And the liver, Mother would fry a piece of liver, and it was so good. Such a treat. And later on, when my mother had a car, then sometimes she would see a pheasant on the side of the road that had been hit by a car, or a squirrel, and she'd pick it up and bring it back home and we'd eat it. My uncle said, well, it could have been a disease, and my aunt said, never got sick from it.